Hi, in this video I'm going to take a look at some of the things that are new in QGIS 3.8. In 3.8 there are a few things that are new. There is the visual change log and this short description of some of the things that are new. So if you want to see a complete list of what is new, you can go to the website and look at the visual change log. Tile services. To match the raster resolution, there's an improvement that makes it easier to zoom to native resolution, even for this type of services. And it picks the closest zoom level and zooms to that. So that will bring me to this tile. If I zoom in a bit, it will bring me to that one. So that's one of the improvements. Another improvement is in measurements for lines and areas. You can now measure in Cartesian. Previously it was always ellipsoidal, which means it measures on a sphere. But if you wanted to measure between two known coordinates, it was sometimes weird that you got longer result than you would get by just subtracting the coordinates. So now you can force the measurements to measure in Cartesian coordinates. That's one improvement. Let's see. Yep. I think I have a spreadsheet here. Oops. Here it is. Previously, you could add data from spreadsheets like Excel or LibreOffice Calc. But now it's possible to expand the spreadsheet so you get the individual sheets in the spreadsheet. So you can add the table you want from the spreadsheet directly. That's one improvement. Let's see. Let's create a temporary scratch layer. Point. Well, that was stupid, but let's do it anyway. Just add some points because I need them later. Like that. And let's add some lines. Line string in a projected system, like that. So, adding lines. Nothing weird about that. When you're editing in a projected system, you could use the advanced digitizing tool. So if you activate that, you get help with the angles, and you could put in a specific angle if you wanted that, like 45 degrees. That was in the opposite direction, but anyway. So this tool was great, and now it's even better. Because now everything you see in the panel here can also be placed at the cursor by adding a floater. So now you get that information directly at the cursor. And you can still change the values and lock them. Like that. So it works the same way, but now it's even more visual. Another change to the editing is that previously when you wanted to modify a line or a polygon, you used the plus signs between vertices or at the end to extend the lines. But you could only do that one segment at a time. Now it is chained. So when you add or click on the plus sign at the end, see if there, it is now chained. So you don't have to add segment for segment. You can just continue editing, and then it works both at the start and at the end of the line. Let's see, just save that. If you want to have the X and Y coordinates in a layer for my points previously, there's now a processing tool for that. Add X and Y fields to layer. From my extensive testing, I have learned the hard way that this only works for point layers naturally, but I didn't quite realize that. So it only works for point layers. Important to mention. So you select your point layer you want to add X and Y fields to, and here is one nice thing, that even if it is in a projected coordinate system, you can select whatever supported coordinate system you want to add your X and Y values from. So I could do this in unprojected lat long, for instance. Like that. And then we got lat long X, lat long Y. And then I guess I could also add googles. Didn't have that. Pseudo Mercator, like that. Let's call that Google. Run. And now I got Google coordinates. So that's a nice little tool. But I think I'll remove those. Let's see. Styling. Marker lines have been there before, and now we have a new style that is similar but a bit more powerful, and that's hashed line. Exactly what this brings, what kind of benefits it brings over a marker line, I haven't explored that extensively, but there are some differences. But one thing that is new and works for marker lines and hashed lines is the settings for average angle over and then the distance. So previously, this option was not available. So if we increase that and add a line, the direction of the marker was always in relation to the line at the exact point for the marker. This option makes it possible to make and take an average over a distance. So the default is 4, which changes the line's sum, but depending on the geometry and the complexity of the lines, you can change this. And this will make it a little nicer and make it flow a bit better, even if the lines are not that complex geometries. So that's a nice thing. Another thing for the lines, let's take this simple line and let's add a new one and make that a geometry generator point. Previously, you could get the vertices from a line or a polygon by using point N for the geometry and then specify which vertex. So the first vertex, like that. The second one, third, fourth, and so on. But if you wanted the last one, you had to count the number of vertices in each polygon and specify that. But now you can just simply use negative numbers. So -1 is the last one, -2 the second to last, and so on. Let's see. Let's use my point layers, and instead of a simple marker, well, we can use a simple marker and a character or font marker. It was possible, the thing that I'm going to show you previously, but you had to do a lot of things manual. Now it's automatic. So if you want a string as your font marker, you can just type it in a field like this. You can still select letters like before, but it's now possible to make custom strings to use as a font marker. One issue I'm having is that if you want to make strings from, for instance, where do we have dingbats? Strings of characters like this, it's hard to know where they are on the keyboard. So you can add like this, but you can't add to it. So it would be nice if you, for instance, could control click or right click, which would add strings or characters to the string. That's a feature request from my side. Let's see if I maybe submit that, or if there's someone out there that feels strongly about that type of function. You could submit that feature request. Now we have a few layers here. Let's see. Yep. So let's package them. Packaging layers to GeoPackage is not new. It has been there before. What is new is that now the styling for each layer is saved as default to the GeoPackage as the default style for the layers. It's optional, so you can remove it, so the styles are not saved, but it is turned on as a default. So let's save this to temp 2. like that. And they are not replacing the current layers. That could actually be a nice feature when you package layers. Replace the layers. Because right now I need to remove those. And then there we go, temp 2. That didn't work. Was it because it was temporary scratch layers? Never mind. There we go. Okay. The next thing about GeoPackage is that now it's possible to save your project in a GeoPackage. Previously, you could save it to a post-GIS database, but now you can also save to a GeoPackage. It needs to be an existing GeoPackage, so the temp2 GeoPackage, and I need to name it project 1. If I go to my browser and update, you will now see that there's a project inside the GeoPackage. You could save multiple projects to the same GeoPackage. That's possible, but you will get some messages that might be confusing. So let's do save another one. Call it project 2. Save. Then it will ask you if you want to replace it or overwrite it, because there is already a project with the same name, but there isn't. So if you say no, nothing happens. If you say yes, this dialog tells you that it will be overwritten, but yes, update, and now we have 2 projects, and both work fine. So that is probably a bug in this function. Okay, let's see. Yep. Let's use my point layers, points, and styling, label. Let's just make it a text label. Like that. I think I'll remove my font marker. That. And we'll make it bigger. The placement options for fonts. It's now possible to use a geometry generator to generate the placement location for the fonts. So, for instance, if you activate it and put in geometry, that's quite okay. But we could also project that point. And let's try 500 meters. in the direction of radians 45. Up there. You can also generate line strings for as a geometry from any geometry. So depending on the geometry you generate, you will get other placement options for that. So polygon will have its values, lines, and points. Its original placement options. And if you turn the geometry generator off, it will have point placement options. So that's a nice feature. Let's see. Yep. The Move Labels tool. Previously, when you moved or rotated labels, you clicked, dragged, and released the labels. Now it is click, move, click. Both for moving labels and rotating it. So click, rotate, click. So it's the same behavior as editing other geometries. Let's create a layout. Add a map with a frame. It's now much simpler if you want to add a north arrow. It has a dedicated button. It's not a new function, but it's much easier to add a north arrow. You can change it as previously to anything, a deer or another type of north arrow, whatever you like. As a default, it will synchronize with the first map in the layout. So if you have several layouts, it will synchronize with the first one. And as I said, it was quite possible to add this type of north arrows before by using the picture frame. Is it called pictures? Yeah. But now it is a dedicated button, and it will make it a lot simpler for those of you who use north arrows extensively. Let's see. Another new thing is that sometimes you need to find the extent of the map in your layout. You can look at the extent numbers, but sometimes you want to have that information in the main canvas of QGIS. Now there's a processing tool for that. So let's see. Print layout map extent to layer. So by using this, you select the layout, the map element. You can override the CRS if you want to. And when you run it, you will get the extent from the layout as a layer. And it will match perfectly. Let's see, what else do we have? Yeah, let's do another processing tool. I want to make a buffer around my points for, let's say, 500 meters. I could select the points here, but a new feature is that any layer in your layers list can be picked up, dragged and dropped into the layer selector in this type of dialogues. 500. That was small, but anyway. Let's see. Another new feature or new processing tool, overlap analysis. So, for instance, I want to know how large portion of this extent rectangle is covered by my buffers. So the extent rectangle is overlaid by the buffer layer. And we create a temporary layer. That will create some extra information in my table, and that is 8 or 9% of the total area for the extent rectangle. You can turn this around and do it the opposite, so the buffered by extent, and then you will get 100%. Maybe not for that one. Let's see. Yeah, look at that. That is 100%, but that one is not covered to 100% by the rectangle. When you do your analysis and you want to do it as a batch process, there are improvements in the autofill functions. Previously, you could was it a double click on the column name that would fill in whatever you typed or presented in your first row, but now you have a lot of more options. You can fill down, which is the same as double clicking previously, or you can calculate values in a number of ways. Or you may have a folder. Here we have shapefiles, SHP. I have a folder, and the file pattern I want to add is SHP. Find files, and there we go. Now I added them all. And I want to check if any of them are within my extent, for instance. And I can autofill that. And there was an error. I'm just winging it here. But there are a lot of more options in the batch processing tools. Let's see. Yeah, there are some other interesting new tools like Raster and Raster or. So Raster and will take any number of raster layers, and if for a single pixel every layer has a value, then the output will be a 1. If one of them don't have a value, a null or a 0, then the output will be 0. For or, if any of the layers have a value, it will be a 1. And if none of them have a value, it will be 0. So it's a simple tool, but extremely useful if you have the need for it. Otherwise, it would require a lot of steps to get the same results. Another interesting one, join attributes by nearest. This processing tool will look for each point in that layer. It will look in this layer for the feature that is closest to the one in the point layer. And then it will add attributes from that layer to the resulting output. Another one that was previously a plugin and now in core is generate XYZ tiles. There are some work being done on this, and we will hopefully see some improvements down the road. But right now it works fine. There are some issues with the boundaries between tiles, but if you are generating tiles for leaflet maps or open layers, this is one tool that quickly generate those tiles from a QGIS project. So that is really useful. And you can generate it in the MB tiles format as well. Models. Now, if you create complex models, you can now create variables. So for instance, the buffer. If we had a model that used a distance around something like a police station, you could create a variable that you could use in your models. So let's see. Let's use the buffer. So instead of a number for the distance, you could use a variable that you have created in your model. And when you want to run your model again with another value, you just change the variable value, and that will influence everywhere in your model that has that variable. These variables will not be available outside the model, so they are only created and saved inside the model. You remember we saved to GeoPackage. You might have seen here another option, save to templates. This is templates is something that has been a bit in the shadows previously. It has been there, but from QGIS 3.10 it will be more visible when you use QGIS. Because when you, let's just start QGIS again. When you start QGIS, you get the latest projects, recent projects list. But in the future, there will also be a templates list. So if you have templates in your templates folder, those will be available for you as soon as you start QGIS. Right now you could open from templates What is this? I haven't used this myself. Open from templates. I think this is a bug. Yeah, something weird. Open from templates. No. Yeah, some form of bugs that needs to be fixed is probably present. Anyway, that was most of what I wanted to cover. And as I said, if you want to look closer into what's new in 3.8, check out the visual changelog. So I guess that is all, and see you next time.